All right, well, we will go ahead and get started. Welcome, everyone. Thank you so much for being here. I know we took a month off with all of our other conferences, so we are back and at it with Dr. Juanita Cleaver-Simmons and her guest, Deven Stepney. Make sure, if you haven't already, that you're muted so that you don't interfere with our speaker. The recording and slides will be made available on stopRED.org probably by next week, along with other past sessions that you are free to view. Please remember to take the survey at the end. It is vital to our funding and the continuation of these lunchtime learning sessions. Also, just a reminder, our RED virtual conference, Knowledge is Power. The registration is out and available at mjja.org. It is July 9th and 10th. Also, please hold your questions until the end or just put them in the chat so we can make sure to get through the presentation today. I also want to thank our funding source. Funds are made available for this project through the Missouri Department of Public Safety and the Missouri Juvenile Justice Advisory Group from funding provided by the U.S. Department of Justice, Office of Juvenile Justice and Delinquency Prevention. And with that, I will pass it to Dr. Simmons.
Good afternoon to everyone, and thank you for joining us today. We have a very special guest. Our guest today is someone who is dear to my heart. He is a former student of Northwest Missouri State University and has made many, many gains already, as he did on that campus in his leadership roles, social services, community activism, and he is still doing it. Deven is going to introduce himself, but I'd like to just let you all know that he is a go-getter. He is someone who has served both in Texas and Missouri. He is a Missourian and back to Missouri there, where he's working in anesthesiology for St. Louis University as their DEI and community consultant. He'll get those titles straight for me. But Deven is here, and I'm going to turn it over to Deven, my dear friend and like a godson to me, Deven Stepney.
Good morning, everyone. Can you all see my screen okay?
Yeah.
Okay, as soon as we spoke on technical difficulties, I decided to have a couple. So first and foremost, I am so honored to be here this morning. I had the pleasure of meeting Dr. Simmons many years ago when I was a student at Northwest, and she was our vice president. And she took me under her wing and really just molded me into the wonderful person that I am today. And I'm forever grateful for Dr. Simmons. And I was so honored when she asked me to come and speak to you all today. And so normally when I present, I like for it to be more conversational, but today I am pretty sure I'm going to get a lot of your questions answered in this presentation. And so once I get through the presentation, I would love to stop sharing the screen to see all of your beautiful faces, and we can open the floor for any dialogue and any questions that you all may have. So just jumping right into it. So this presentation is promoting allyship, creating brave spaces for LGBTQIA+ youth. My name is Deven Stepney, and I go by the he, him, his pronouns. You'll hear me use the word brave spaces a lot throughout this presentation, or a couple times. We're shying away from the term safe spaces. As we know, not many spaces can be considered safe. However, we want to start going by the term brave spaces. And so, again, my name is Deven Stepney. On the flyer that you all received, it gave a little about my background, but I am more than happy to talk through this a little. I am a graduate of Northwest Missouri State University, holding a Bachelor's of Science in Human Services. I have a natural instinct to care for others, which is how I found my way into the HIV field many years ago. I served in the HIV field under the Ryan White Planning Council in St. Louis, Missouri, as well as in Fort Worth, Texas. I recently did a complete 180, and I came back to St. Louis and started working in the anesthesiology department at Washington University as their program manager for the Office of Professional Development, Diversity, Equity, Inclusion, and Wellbeing. I've always understood the importance of visibility and inclusion, and I'm able to focus on creating an inclusive environment in my current role. So a little on my background in DEI, although this is a career pivot for me, I was the intern for our Office of Diversity, Equity, and Inclusion when I was at Northwest Missouri State, which then led to me helping create the office. We were at that time the Office of Multicultural Affairs. And once we created the DEI office, I went under their wing as their lead student worker. And that's where I got a lot of my experience in the DEI field. And even when I was working under the umbrella of HIV services, I still did a lot of DEI related work in that, as far as making sure we were representative of the community that we were serving. We ensuring that we had voices from the community active in our planning body. So a little about the presentation objectives. Here are a couple things I'd like for us to pull out of this presentation. And at the end, I will give you some takeaways and some action items, because I'm a person who I always want to leave a presentation feeling motivated, and I always want to leave feeling like, okay, now what can I do? And so I plan today to educate you all on allyship and support, identify a working definition of allyship, identify steps we can take to live out allyship in our everyday lives, identify ways to be a better ally, understand the importance of an ally, and explore next steps. Now, coming into this presentation, I didn't want to assume anyone's level of competency as it relates to being an ally for the LGBTQIA+ community. And so a lot of the information I'm going to present today may be ground level information for some of you, and for others, it may be high level information. But my hope is that we all can leave on somewhat of an even playing field with the knowledge that we are given today. I think it's important to start off by giving some terminology. And so again, this may be new to some, and this may just be a refresher to others. So lesbian, the L in LGBTQIA+, usually a woman whose primary sexual and affectional orientation is toward people of the same gender. However, some non-binary people can identify as lesbians also, often because they have some connection to womanhood and are primarily attracted to women. Gay, sexual and affectional orientation toward people of the same gender. We have our bisexual community, a person whose primary sexual and affectional orientation is toward people of the same gender and other genders, or towards people regardless of their gender. Some people may use bisexual and pansexual interchangeably. I think it just depends on who you speak with. Our transgender community, one's internal knowledge of gender is different from conventional or cultural expectations based on the sex that the person was assigned at birth. While transgender may refer to a woman who's assigned male at birth or a male who's assigned female at birth, transgender is an umbrella term that can also describe someone who identifies as a gender other than man or woman, such as non-binary, queer gender, queer fluid, or gender of multiple or no gender or multiple gender, and other gender identities. Again, we will break some of these things down as we go through this presentation. The Q, queer or questioning, again, that just depends on who you speak to. Queer is it's a term used for people whose gender and gender expression and or sexuality do not conform to dominant expectation. Historically, queer has been used as a slur, but has been taken under the LGBTQ+ umbrella as an endearing term. And the questioning the process of exploring one's own gender identity, gender expression, and or sexual orientation. A little more terminology for you all. So the I is intersex, an umbrella term used to describe a wide range of natural body variations that do not fit nearly into conventional definitions of male or female. Hermaphrodite is an outdated and inaccurate term that has been used to describe intersex people in the past. We have asexual, the lack of sexual attraction to others, or low absent interest in the desire for sexual activity. The A also could stand for ally, which I think is directly aligned with this presentation today. An individual working to end oppression through support and as an advocate with and for a group other than its own. I also think it's important to point out two other terms, intersectionality and heteronormative. Intersectionality takes into account people's overlapping identities and experiences in order to understand the complexity of prejudices that they face. I use the word intersectionality in my day-to-day life more than I realized. It was a term that was coined in the late 90s, but it came across my desk a couple years ago. And since I've learned what intersectionality is, it's helped describe a lot of aspects of my life. and heteronormative. It's attitudes and behaviors that incorrectly assume gender is binary, ignoring genders besides women and men, and that people should and will align to conventional expectations of society. And so let's put all of that into, I'm a visual learner, so let's put that into sort of a picture. So I saw this picture online and I thought that it was a great way of conveying gender expression, gender identity, orientation / attraction, and sex. And so the arrow sort of breaks down what it is. Gender expression is the outwardly expression, the way a person communicates their gender identity to others by the way they dress or act refers to themselves. Gender identity is a person's internal sense of being a man or woman or anything in between. Their orientation or attraction is right here at the heart, a term to describe sexual and or romantic attraction to others. And then sex, the labels male or female or intersex given to someone at birth based on their body parts. So I have a very short video, and fingers crossed, it worked for me earlier, but we all know how technology is. It's your friend until you need it to be your friend. And so I'm going to click on it with the hopes that it's going to work for you all. It is a really short video, about 1 minute and 30 seconds. I'm going to skip this ad and then I'm going to pull it over to the screen. Can you all see the video? Oh, perfect. Technology is my friend today.
Be a good ally, show up.
Can we hear that okay? Okay, perfect.
You want to be a good ally, show up for your trans friends. You don't need to change the world. Show up on a local, palpable level for the people in your life who matter to you. A good ally is someone who knows how to speak, how to be heard, but also how to listen.
A good ally knows when to shut up and takes a step back and uplifts the people that need their voices to be heard.
I think one of my biggest frustrations with allies actually comes from the people who purport to be very liberal and very informed. I've experienced a lot of people who think that they know exactly what they're talking about and are very resistant to hearing anything to the contrary. They're not interested at all in when you say, hey, what you just said really hurt me, and so if you could use this instead, and they're like, well, no, I say this, and that's how I've always said it, and it's fine. I had one gay person tell me it was fine.
You need to know as an ally not to speak over people, not to speak for people, and not to tell other people's stories that are not your own. But be able to stand in for someone when they need you to, when they ask you to, and say and use the information that you know to combat hate and bigotry. A good ally is someone who is willing to make sacrifices in order for all of us to have a better.
Okay, can you all see my presentation again? Technology is on my side today. And so I thought that it was important for us to hear what an ally is from the community. I'm only one person. I don't want to speak for the community as a whole, but I thought that this video, to me, it was short but impactful. And so I wanted to share it with you all with the hopes that this will be one of the many tools that you'll put into your toolbox when we are looking into how to be an ally. I think one of my biggest takeaways from this video was allies know when to shut up. And although that could be rude depending on how you look at it, I think that the important part of being an ally in any aspect of your life is understanding that as an ally, I have a privilege and I'm able to go in spaces where minority communities or minoritized communities aren't, and I'm able to be disruptively innovative in ways that others are not. But I also must recognize that when I'm using my privilege, I use it as leverage to help bring in the minoritized community. And so that was my biggest takeaway from this. I know they didn't say all those words in the video, but that's how I summed it up. And so there is this website, Campus Pride, and I think that Campus Pride is an amazing resource. I won't go through all these things. I'll pull out a couple that really stood out to me, but Campus Pride has resources, and one of the resources I found was how to be an ally according to Campus Pride, allyship in our everyday lives. The headings are ally is not an identity, It gives you some things to do, and it also gives so just informs us to educate ourselves. Again, these slides will be made available to you all. I won't go through them just because this is a very hefty list, but I think this is one of those things that we can pull out and make a part of our toolbox so that we can know how to be allies in our everyday lives. I am a person who likes to prepare, over-prepare, and then prepare again. And so in preparing for this presentation, I took to social media to do a poll. I took to Snapchat and Facebook, and I just asked for individuals who want to be an ally for the LGBTQ+ community, but lack the knowledge. What are some areas that you have questions about? And I pulled out 5 of the questions that I thought were really important to share today. And I'm going to share those questions with you all, as well as some responses to those questions, or what my responses are. The first question being, what does genuine allyship look like? Is it just support and correcting misconceptions? So plainly put, genuine allyship is showing up for the community without decentering or making it about you. Using your privilege to help comfort and dismantle heteronormative beliefs, heterosexism, genderism, etc. Again, that's where we use our privilege to leverage. Being an ally is also not picking and choosing who within the community you would be an ally to. If you're going to be an ally, you have to be well-rounded. I can't say I'm an ally to the LGBTQ+ community, but I don't support the trans population. I only support the gay population. Being an ally looks like understanding that you don't have all the answers, but you're at least willing to check yourself and go out and learn. I think that education is key in everything we do. We should constantly be studious and constantly be willing to educate ourselves, constantly be willing to educate others as we learn. We have to be willing to apologize. If I'm speaking to someone and I misgender them, or I say something offensive and they express that they're offended by it, it's not up to me to try to defend my point. The only thing I could do is apologize and do better going forward. Speaking up and respecting boundaries. I think part of respecting boundaries too is understanding everyone doesn't necessarily want you to show up for them. Everyone doesn't feel like they need an ally. And so understanding what that looks like when we're respecting boundaries. The second question that I got was, is there more to being an ally than simply having friends within the community? And the short answer to that is absolutely. Having friends within the community is the first step. Being an ally extends far beyond friendships. This is where you must be willing to educate yourself, check yourself, correct yourself, be respectful, use inclusive language. I think a big point is we must be willing to listen and understand that someone else's story and experience is not a topic to debate. I always say that respect also should be a part of this. And one of my favorite lines is that respect is the bare minimum. Once respect is there, there's so much more work that goes into being an ally. The third question I was asked was what is needed to be considered an ally? And the first is understanding that being an ally is a verb and not a noun. There's more to me saying I'm an ally, but am I actually practicing being an ally in my everyday life? Am I actually speaking up for those underserved or underprivileged communities? Am I actually using my privilege to help pull that community up into the conversations? Being willing to educate, being willing to be proactive in educating yourselves and others. You'll see me put educating yourself a lot, because as someone who is a member of the LGBT community, but also ally in many other communities, it's important that I consistently educate myself, not only of the needs of this community, but what is this community expressing? Being willing to show up and taking advantage of different trainings that include information surrounding DEI and the LGBTQ+ community. The fourth question I was asked is, if someone considers themselves an ally, what is something that they have to be intentional about? Being intentional is very important. Being intentional is being self-aware. It's one of the hardest things to do sometimes. One of the hardest things is to check ourselves sometimes, but it's necessary for our growth. Understanding that your experience with one person within the community can be totally different than your experience with another, but it's important that you be sensitive to the different needs of each individual. I believe that in the video, someone spoke about, oh, well, one gay person said that I could do this, so that's acceptable for the whole community. We must be sensitive to everyone's experiences and needs. And believing that calling themselves an ally is enough, but not being willing to do the work of an actual ally. I think that one's pretty self-explanatory, but again, being an ally is a verb and not a noun. And the final question I was asked is, what is the point of pronouns? This is a question that I hear so much. This is a constant conversation that's going on. So I wanted to really dive into this one. So pronouns allow us to address individuals as how they identify as opposed to how we may identify them. Using the correct pronouns is a basic way of showing respect for someone's identity. For many people, pronouns are closely tied to their sense of self. And so using the correct pronouns affirms them and acknowledges their identity. Using a person's pronouns, correct pronouns, is a form of respect and inclusivity. In environments like schools, workplaces, social settings, using correct pronouns fosters a sense of inclusion and belonging, and it helps us to create a respectful and supportive environment where everyone feels seen and valued. I always say the importance of visibility is very important, and so it's important that we make individuals that we encounter feel seen. One of the things I like to refer back to is when I was in college, I attended a predominantly white institution. And as a Black student on the campus, my first thought was, okay, where are the people who look like me? If I don't see myself represented across the college campus, or I don't see a place where there's a brave space for me, what about that campus is going to draw me in? And so to draw people in, it's important that we affirm their pronouns, and that way they're able to feel visible. Using correct pronouns improves communication and strengthens relationship. It shows that you are attentive and considerate, which can enhance trust and rapport. And I think one of the most important things that I pulled out of this was pronouns are part of a broader conversation about gender, equality, and social justice. Recognizing and respecting people's chosen pronouns is a step towards dismantling gender-based discrimination and biases. And so, taking all of this, I thought, how can I leave this presentation with a working definition of ally, of an ally? And so I created this definition as it specifically relates to the LGBT community. And it is lengthy. However, all the words are necessary. And so an ally is an individual or group that actively supports, stands up for, and works alongside others, often from marginalized or underrepresented communities, to advocate for their rights and well-being. An ally is someone who seeks to understand the experience of others, using their privilege to amplify their voices and inspire positive change through their actions and solidarity. I'm sorry, I meant to take out solidarity with individuals who supports LGBTQIA plus community. I'll correct that slide before I send it back. An ally is willing to educate and be educated, listen and learn, and most importantly, be self-aware. An ally can inspire. I am a person who loves acronyms, and so you may notice that INSPIRE is in all caps, because I thought, what better time than now to create an acronym for ally as someone who inspires. As an ally, you have the ability to inspire others to become an ally. And so I thought, let's create an acronym based on the word inspire. And so inclusive is the I in inspire, using inclusive language. Nurturing, providing care and encouragement. Supportive, being supportive of those within the community. Patient, I think that patience extends to yourself and with others. It is a process, so you have to trust the process. I think specifically, even as it relates to using the correct pronouns, it's a process. If I'm speaking to someone who's GNC, it's a process for me. It may be a process if they are like, I go by the they, them pronouns. And I'm used to saying he, she, they, he, she, he, her. So it's definitely a process. So be patient with yourself and with others, and trust the process. Inspiring, using your light to inspire others. And then the last two, respectful and empowering. I think those two are pretty self-explanatory. And so I'm hoping that inspire is another little tool that we can put in our toolbox. Each word and each letter within inspire has a word that goes along with it that really speaks to what an ally is. Wanting to give you all some takeaways, because again, I'm a person who's like, okay, what can I do? I'm inspired. I listened to this presentation. I need to go out into the community and do something. And so here are a couple of takeaways, and then I'll also give you some calls to action. And so some takeaways are to listen actively, Understand the experience and perspectives of those you are supporting without interrupting or making assumptions. Educate yourself. Continuously learn about the issues and challenges faced by marginalized communities. Acknowledge privilege. Recognize your own privileges and how they impact your interactions and understanding of others. Speak up, using your voice to call out discrimination and injustice whenever you see it. I think that's one of those points where as an ally, you use your privilege to go into spaces and be disruptively innovative. Show empathy, demonstrate understanding and compassion for the struggles and emotions of others. Be accountable, accept feedback and be willing to make changes to your behaviors and actions. And support inclusivity. Advocate for inclusive policies and practices in your community, workplace, and social circles, my apology. So now that I've given you some takeaways, I love action items. Here are some calls to actions. What can you do? When you leave this training, what can I do? So you can attend more trainings, commit to ongoing education by attending additional workshops and trainings on diversity and inclusion. You can join advocacy groups, become an active member of organizations that support marginalized communities. I think the best way to learn about a community is to go and commune with that community. Promote awareness. When you hear about a resource, share it. When you hear about an article, share it. Any information about allyship and related issues on social media and your networks, whether people admit it or not, they're watching, especially on those social media platforms. And so if you see a great resource that comes across your Facebook page, it takes 2 seconds to share it. Mentor and support. Offer mentor and support to individuals who are from underrepresented groups. Challenge your biases. We should be checking ourselves every day. Actively challenge and address your own biases and those of others in your community and interactions. Volunteer. Go out and offer your time and skills to support causes and organizations that work toward equality and justice. If you are a person who is interested in learning more about the disability community, find an organization in St. Louis that caters to that community and do some volunteering. And then once you're in that space, you'll allow yourself the opportunity to be educated. And then create brave spaces. We have to foster an environment where everyone feels safe, respected, and valued. I think that I always say one of the biggest disservices we do to the world is showing up as anyone other than ourselves. But if a space is not created where I'm not able to show up as myself, then I'm doing the world a disservice. I'm doing a disservice to those I'm interacting with. And so as an ally, it's up to us to create those brave spaces for people to feel that they can show up as their most authentic selves. Here are the resources where I got a lot of my information from. And then here's the question slide. I am going to stop sharing now because I would love to see your beautiful faces. I would love to open the floor up to any opportunities for questions or any opportunities for conversation or feedback. I do understand there is a feedback form that goes along with this, but I want to open the floor now if there are any questions that you all may have. And if I went too fast, Dr. Simmons, tell me now.
No, that was fantastic, as I knew it would be, and very concise, as you always are, and well studied and researched. I see some mics are on, and I'm with you, Devin. I would love to see some of these faces too, and
Absolutely.
for them to join into the conversations. So I see some mics coming off, and so the floor is open. This was dynamic, and we'd love to hear from you.
I was using the term brave spaces. I'll type that in the chat for you too. I apologize about that.
I've heard some recent conversations about the hush down on safe spaces, and mainly from corporate DEI individuals. And so I'm glad to know that there is an exchange for that versus safe spaces. I see some very active individuals here, and I'm looking at some faces that look as though they want to make some comments. I see Rick Gaines is there. So, hey, Rick.
And I was going to say, I don't want to call Rachel Gabriel out, but I thought that you were trying to unmute to ask a question, I could totally be assuming, and I'm open to
Mhm.
being wrong.
I saw her, and then Rick Gaines is after Rachel.
Hi, Devin. I wanted to share that the information you provided was thought-provoking and very helpful. And I think what I like most is the fact that this concept of inspire is can transcend even this area to other areas where disenfranchised or not heard groups that we work with. We can utilize this in in a myriad of areas. So I appreciate that, and I really like your that acronym. Thank you.
Thank you. And then one thing that I don't know if I shared this, I did share it about just being patient with ourselves. This is absolutely a process for all of us. And so while my hope is that we all will go out and inspire, I just encourage you to be patient with yourself, but also recognize, like, I don't know it all, but I'm willing to learn. And that's what I tell myself daily. I don't have all the answers, but at least being willing to go out and seek answers is very important. So thank you for your feedback. I'll shut up now, Rick, so that you can speak.
Yeah, this has been really very informative, and clearly you know what you're talking about, and your presentation style is just great. So keep doing what you do. But you know, as a person who learned that my youngest son was gay when he was in the 6th grade, you know, what you talked about is, I mean, when you talk about ally, I never looked at it that way, but I could use your definition in a whole bunch of categories or conversations. And so initially I struggled, just like any parent, I think, but I am truly an ally with him and his culture, and what you just said just resonates, just really personal for me as well. And so I really appreciate this conversation and the information that you brought. I'd love to have your slides. I know that Liz is going to put them out there because I think a lot of the things that you talked about educates us not only professionally but personally. And so I just want to say kudos to you, and thanks, Dr. Simmons, for having you present today.
Thank you. Thank you. I think that from both perspectives, as I'm not a parent, but I think that having that conversation with your parent is one of the hardest conversations you have to have, because I can imagine that as a parent, you have this idea of what your child is going to be and who your child is going to be. And so to have your child come to you and say, this is actually who I am, I tip my hat to you for even being willing to say, like, I struggled with it in the beginning, but as I had more experience in my life, and as I talked to my son, now I'm understanding the importance of being an ally. And so I definitely tip my hat to you, because I know that was probably obviously a hard pill for you to swallow as a parent, but also a hard conversation for your son to have with you. And so,
No doubt.
And so I just say, like, continue doing the work, and we need parents to show up for us every day. The world is going to beat us down enough. And this is a conversation I have with my aunt now, who is saying she believes her son is gay. And I'm like, the world is going to beat your baby down enough. So the least you can do as a parent, you love on your child. I love you with everything you come with. You don't necessarily have to agree with every aspect of your child's life, but I'm going to love you with everything you come with. And so I definitely tip my hat to you as a parent advocate.
Thank you so much.
Thank you.
We have some questions in the chat box.
I think we got them answered. Carol asked if I was saying brave spaces or gray spaces, and then Liz put in the survey.
And some went directly to Liz because they didn't want to interrupt.
Okay.
So Liz, do you have access to some of those there?
And then I know Nikki also has their hand up too.
Oh.
Yep. Sorry, I'm trying to get back to my private.
Meanwhile, Nikki has the floor, and then we will go to the chat box, those that went directly to Liz. Nikki?
Hi. Yep. Can you hear me okay?
Yes.
Hey guys, my name is Nikki and I work with the Circuit Court. It's kind of a new position for me and I'm excited. But I live pretty much in the eastern Kansas City suburbs. And just kind of with it being Pride season, I've talked to um, fellow friends that also, are performers and entertainers. And so we've kind of seen like a need, maybe to get a Pride event of some sorts, out in the suburb that we live in. So, any advice, I definitely don't think, it's like probably the right people that have all the resources, but any advice that you would have for, just living in those places can be hard to find the people and find, the right resources. So anything, anybody would have to say about that and like who I should reach out to, just kind of, just finding those allies that would have, the resources to help me put some event like that together would be great.
And Nikki, you said you're in the Kansas City area?
Correct. Yep. I live in like Blue Springs, which is kind of by Independence, just, yep, about 10 minutes, 10, 15 miles outside.
Okay, I spent a lot of time in Kansas City. My first thought, just about like finding like, and I want to make sure I'm answering your question correctly. You want to know like where can you maybe find some community partners who can help get some Pride related events?
Yeah, yeah, definitely. Yeah. I've been seeing a lot, in other smaller towns and other suburbs, just people putting together their own Pride events. And it's kind of been hard, just especially with lack of funds and things like that. So it's just, definitely just finding the right people that would be able to help or at least be able to point me in the right direction.
Well, offhand, I know one resource. Carol is the interim board president for Kansas City Center for Inclusion, and they are merging their spot with our spot, and they're located in southern Kansas City. So it may be, or I think it's definitely worth connecting with Carol. Um, what is UMKC? I think that having some connections with the local university, the UMKC, I don't know if they have an
Hmm.
Office of Diversity, Equity, and Inclusion, but I will look to see what DEI related offices they have on campus because they typically know a lot of community resources. And then just me putting my HIV hat back on, a lot of the communities that we serve are the LGBTQIA plus community. And so I would encourage
Right.
you to look into Kansas City has a Ryan White Planning Council that I believe is ran out of their health department. And if you connect with them, they'll know about some community partners.
Yeah,
And if it's,
definitely. Thank you.
I can type this in the chat.
That would be great too. Yeah, and I will definitely reach out to you, Carol, because that would be great. Just any resources, any help is all at all, just to see if it's something that we could feasibly do within the next couple of years, just to give it a try. Just because a lot of us like we're getting ready for my class is getting ready for their 10-year high school reunion. And we were just thinking of like, okay, what are some fun things to get, to get us all involved, especially since, we just kind of grew up in more of a traditional kind of conservative area, but we know that there is, a great LGBT population that wants to, just have pride. So thank you. No, I definitely appreciate it.
Thank you. I know Carol put the resources for the Kansas City Center for Inclusion as well as UMKC, and then I put the HIV Planning Council there. I think those are great starts for some community partners.
We did have a question. What is most critical for juvenile professionals to understand about youth who are trans?
Ooh. Can you repeat that to me one more time? I just want to make sure I answer it correctly.
What is most critical for juvenile professionals to understand about youth who are trans?
I think it's important for them to understand that that youth experience is their own. And regardless of how the staff member may feel or anything, that is their experience. And so if someone's coming forward and they're telling you I identify as this gender, it's important to affirm that. It's important to respect their pronouns, and it's important to make sure that they have the appropriate accommodations. in whatever aspect, like if there's housing involved, making sure they have the appropriate accommodations as far as housing, but then also making sure that their safety is top priority. I think it's important for us to recognize that there are attacks. There's attacks on DEI work, but there's also an attack on our transgender youth. And so I think it's important for us to make their safety a top priority, but listen when they are expressing, this is my need, this is what I need in order to be successful, in doing the best and finding the resources necessary to assure that they are successful. So thank you to whoever whoever asked that question. I hope I was able to answer it. I see that Carol put something in the chat. I always ask their preferred name and pronouns before speaking and stick to gender neutral language until they're ready to share that info with me. Then we get into services and how we help. Carol, I think that's an amazing practice. I'm just going to keep saying I tip my hat to you. I don't have a hat on, but if I did, I tip it to you, metaphorically speaking.
Thank
Did
you.
you have anything else, Liz?
That is the only one in here. Does anybody else have any other questions
Wow.
or comments?
Rachel?
Yes, so I very much want to be mindful and thoughtful with the pronouns. And I hope this doesn't sound weird. Is there any kind of like video to show you how to, especially the ones that are not the non-traditional ones, the thems and how to utilize that or say it and not feel like you're tongue twisted or tongue tied when you're doing it? Is there any like kind of like your little video, something short, simple that can help professionals learn how to give that in a thoughtful way, or do that in a thoughtful way?
Absolutely. I will look out there to see what I can find, and then I'll send that to Liz and Dr. Simmons. Excuse me. Again, it's a process, Rachel. So please be patient with yourself. It is a process to unlearn a lot of things. If I'm having a conversation, it's easy for me to say, "Oh, Rachel, she." And so I think we just have to be very intentional when we're going into a conversation with someone that we know doesn't necessarily conform to the he, him, or the she, her pronouns, just replacing that word with they. So instead of saying Rachel, she, Rachel, they, or Rick, he, Rick, they. But it is a continuous process, and you have to be very intentional. I have a friend who is GNC, and they use the they, them pronouns. And so when I'm referring to my friend, I always take my time in the conversation to make sure that I'm referring to them as they or them, because that's their pronouns. I like that little nugget. Carol says, I usually start with, hi, I'm Parker, pronouns she, they. What are your preferred? What is your preferred name and pronouns? Which I think is a great conversation starter. It's a great way to get things flowing, but also it's a great, like, okay, in the beginning of the conversation, you told me your pronouns. And so now I have to be very intentional when I'm interacting with you, or even when I'm not interacting, if I'm just referring to you, I have to be very intentional by addressing you as the correct pronouns. So I will absolutely find a video and share it with Liz and Dr. Simmons. Thank you for that.
Thank you.
You know, Deven, I really appreciated your presentation thoroughly, and it was as great as I knew it would be. Something that really stood out also was the use of the term decentering.
Mm-hmm.
And, you know, we look at centering, decentering, recentering, but you actually brought out the point that don't make the mistake of decentering when you are in that type of conversation that may be of uncomfort, discomfort to some. And then you made two additional points that really confirm that. And I'd like to hear you elaborate more on it. You said, apologize, don't defend.
Mm-hmm.
And then you said, listen, don't debate. And I think that those two really are core pieces with the decentering piece, although I've not heard decentering used in this particular community before. It's more with race-related things. So just elaborate a bit on that.
Absolutely. I think that speaks to not making someone else, again, it's not, we're not making someone else's story about us. We're removing ourselves and putting them in, we're removing ourselves from the situation and we're making their story directly about them. You said the listen, what was it? The being willing to apologize. I think that's the first step. If I unintentionally address you by the wrong pronouns, I have to apologize. That just goes without saying. I apologize, and then I just become intentional about, okay, making sure going forward I'm using the correct pronouns. And I believe the second one you said was listen and learn.
Yeah, I said, listen, don't debate is what you had said.
Yes.
Listen, don't debate. Mhm.
Absolutely. I think that's another opportunity for us to say, like, for us to, it's not an argument. If my pronouns are they, them, but to you I'm presenting as he, him, it's not a debate of what my pronouns are. Well, to me, you look like he, him, when in all actuality, it's I identify as they, them. So I think like the gender expression, that picture I gave you all about gender expression and sex and orientation, all those things. And so when someone tells you their pronouns, it's not a debate. It's just an opportunity for you to address them as such. Dr. Simmons, I hope I answered your question and gave accurate feedback.
This comes up with English majors often because it is grammatically different when you're using those pronouns like that because they become plural, although you may be speaking of one individual. So, then people start defending it all according to, the King James version of the language, yeah.
I was going to say, Dr. Simmons, I was the English major for many years. But no, I mean, it's an argument that is had, but again, that's just where we have a comment in the chat. As a non-binary individual in the field, I have worked with all of my coworkers over the better part of a year for them to use pronouns, most of the time correctly. It is a learning process for anyone not used to it, but it is not impossible for anyone to learn new things. The apologize, don't offend goes hand in hand with the win. Likely not, if most of us are only humans. Someone accidentally uses incorrect pronouns or names. Apologize, correct, and continue. Bringing more attention to the slip up by going on and on about it can be more harmful than helpful. I think that it is an important piece that many overlook. Thank you. Let me scroll up to see who said that. Thank you so much, Skylar. I hope I'm pronouncing that right. I do think if you're harping on it, that can be more harmful than helpful. So this is also, as I'm here to educate you all, this is also an opportunity for me to be educated. And so I absolutely thank you for that little nugget that you put in. Dr. Simmons, you said the King James Version, and that made me go to the faith conversation, but that's a whole nother conversation for a whole nother presentation. But thank you for all the comments in the chat. And I'm gonna offer the floor one more time to anyone who, oh, thank you so much. Thank you so much. Dr. Simmons and I have a great working relationship we've had for many years. And so I'm more than certain I'll be invited back for some conversations. I thank you all for having me today. I thank you all for sitting through this presentation. I'm going to correct that slide, Dr. Simmons, and send it to you. I'm also going to find that resource video on pronouns that Rachel requested.
Did you want to share any contact information for, and we're just excited about your presentation and would love for our juvenile professionals to actually take some time to become involved, because we know that one of the greatest risks of our juveniles is that population of kids who are in their questioning, growth, and development, or those who have really affirmed, who are needing our support, whether they're youth who have encountered our courts or whatever. But it is important as juvenile professionals that we become as aware and as involved as possible. And we thought that Pride Month was no better time for us to stop and to refresh and to recognize the importance of this in our professional lives. So you have put in your text box
I put in my email address as well as my phone number. So that's my cell phone number. You all can text or call it, whatever you're more comfortable with. I check my emails regularly, and so you're free to email me as well.
All right. I'd like for everyone to just stop and give him a finger tap, a thumbs up, a heart, a thank you. I'm seeing hearts jump and hands clap on, and we thank you so much, Deven, for taking the time and caring enough to share with us. And you are, as Rick just said, very professional, excellent presenter.
Thank you.
Excellent.
So
My
honored to
heart.
be here. You know, anytime you need me, Dr. Simmons, you got me anytime.
Yeah, thank you. Yeah, and you always come through for me.
Absolutely.
Liz, we want to turn it back over to you for announcements for upcoming events and for the survey. They have time to do the survey so we can get this information down. Thank you.
Yeah, I think I covered most of it in the beginning. We do have our next lunchtime learning next month in what month is that? July. And we're looking at July 24th right now with Dr. Larry Bryant. That could change, but that is what we're working on right now. And I will get that information out just as soon as I can. And please, if you haven't already, get registered for our RED virtual. We have a really cool lineup. So check that out on mjja.org. And that is July 9th and 10th. And I have put the link for the survey in the chat box twice, so please go ahead and take that. And I appreciate all of you being here, and we will see you next month. Thank you so much, Deven.
Thank you. We appreciate you.
Thank you, everyone. Take care.
Thank you, Deven.